Welcome to the Inferno Cast. Today's guest has been a lifelong martial artist, and he has influenced the industry in more ways than most people know. He's the CEO of Century Martial Arts, Michael Dillard. I'm glad that you're spending some time with us today. You've been kind of the guiding hand behind the industry for a lot of years, and I really wanted just to spend some time for people to kind of hear some of the old stories and get to know where you came from and kind of see where this influence started. So, like, when you were a kid, were you always in martial arts, or was that something you found later in life? How did you first get intrigued by the martial arts?
Remember the TV series Kung Fu?
Yes, sir.
I was a fan of that. Anyway, I started martial arts as a teenager.
Yeah. So do you feel like the TV and the entertainment business was kind of your influence to go be the martial arts karate guy, or do you feel like it came from maybe a different input?
No, I went to a really bad high school in a really bad neighborhood. And there was one student there my age who's still my friend who was a black belt. And I saw the respect he got, and I wanted some of that too.
Okay. So you kind of came into it with more of the achieving the black belt mindset and less of the learn to beat people up. Maybe that was just the fun bonus. What was it like when you first started training martial arts?
Well, most of the schools were, they'll talk about the old days and the blood and guts days and all of this. And I know that the older we get, the bloodier it was. So whatever. But most schools, when I was, the guy's name I was speaking of was named Bill Schmid. He's a psychologist now. He's still a good friend. And when I trained with him, all we really wanted to do was find sparring partners.
Were the schools a lot smaller, not a lot of training partners?
I think the schools were, there's a range today, and there was a range then. The schools were, you'd have a class of 20 students or so.
Wow. So when you were going through the ranks and you were getting close to black belt, were you ever very concerned about getting the rank of black belt, or were you just more for doing the training and the belt was just a reflection of the hard work?
Well, I fought in a lot of tournaments, and I made a deal with myself. I set a goal that I would not test for black belt until I could beat all the brown belts. And all the brown belts means all the brown belts. I was a brown belt 38 months waiting until I could win consistently every tournament.
Wow.
I tested for black belt, made black belt, and it would start all over again.
And that was actually going to be my next question. How was that process of going to getting a black belt and then going back to like, okay, now I'm at square one. Now I can really start learning. What was that like for you as a black belt?
Well, I wanted to be the best I could be. I always just wanted to be a student. I never wanted to be the instructor or the master or anything like that. And I think today I'm still a student, although finding new instructors without, it's a little different. We have a really good deal here at Century. Everybody comes through here at one time or another, whether it be Bill Wallace, Joe Lewis, or Brez, Keith Patel. I mean, everybody's been here over the years, and we always ask them to stop in at noon or at 4:30 and teach a class. We have 2 a day. We find that they can do the best stuff.
Yeah.
It's kind of cool. So I get the best stuff from all the great instructors. Some of them are better technicians. Some of them are extremely knowledgeable in ways I would have never dreamed of. Some of them are just better at explaining things. And sometimes, as you know, it's better to hear it from fresh eyes and a different set of instructions.
Yeah, I love that constant student mindset. It's almost like for you to move forward, you have to kind of look around you of the different influences and the different types of styles and instructors. Was there a point in your earlier career when you started really looking to other styles and arts where it was, like trying to do something different or explore these different types of, martial styles that existed?
I've always studied various styles. My ranks are all in other than judo and jiu-jitsu, which I don't have much rank in, but are all in Korean styles. But I studied Goju extensively. I studied Shorin-ryu, Nishin-ryu. there's something to learn from everybody.
Right, for sure. So when did your martial arts career start turning into a little bit more of a business career? I mean, because a lot of people heard the story when you started, selling some uniforms at tournaments, but when did you first see the need that people needed equipment, uniforms, and gear? Like, how did you notice that?
I worked my way through college teaching martial arts at Oklahoma State University. When I graduated, I had a degree in accounting, and I knew that I did not want to be an accountant. I gave it a try for a couple of years. That wasn't that, and I was honestly, I was pretty good at it. I'm kind of good with numbers, I guess. That is not what I wanted to do with my life. I wanted to be a martial artist. That's what I've always been. That's what I always will be. As to the other part of the question about knowing martial arts was had a place in it where I could make a living. I had a situation where I had an instructor who's not alive anymore, but he had several schools in the Oklahoma City area. I did not. I both didn't want to open a school that competed with him, and I didn't want to work for him. I did work for him a bunch, but I needed a job, and I found myself. I studied Goju when I lived in Bombay, India, which is now Mumbai. I studied Taekwondo when I lived in Seoul, Korea. I went there to study. I figured out that I could import uniforms when I was overseas at a favorable price and sell them at the same tournaments that I was fighting in anyway, and kind of had made another deal with myself. If I would go to a tournament, and I might drive 17 hours to Atlanta or to Kansas City or Minneapolis or wherever. If I won the tournament and won a few dollars, then I'd get a hotel room. If I didn't, I had a van full of uniforms. I'd sleep in the van.
When I hear stories like that, it makes me think about that ultimate commitment to the goal, regardless of circumstance. I mean, there's not a lot of people that are willing to put themselves, in that circumstance to where the cost of success can be so high, where when it gets difficult or if it gets uncomfortable, that they persevere. And I keep hearing you say, you make a deal with yourself, which, a lot of people struggle with that self-discipline of when you make a commitment, especially a commitment to yourself, that you have to uphold that. How important has that making a deal with yourself been in your life?
Don't get me wrong. I was having fun. Okay? I loved what I was doing. I didn't make much setting up a table at a tournament and selling out of the back of my van, but I was having a good time. Setting goals, that's Chuck Norris has always taught me a lot about try hard. He takes try hard to a new level. Roger Green, now deceased, taught me how to fight a lot better, how to technique, and most of what I know about martial arts. But Chuck taught me to set goals, and you can imagine in Chuck Norris's career, he's had to set his own goals, and he taught me to do mine.
What's one of the experiences or workouts that you remember, back when you're starting, because you were training with a lot of guys that, like yourself, have done so much for the industry. Can you remember who hit you the hardest?
The hardest. Well,
there's been a few, I'm sure, but if you had to pick a couple that definitely,
a lot of broken bones, including facial bones, and a lot of fingers, a lot of toes, and stuff. The person that hit me the hardest, the earliest in my career, was a boxer named Sean O'Grady. And like back then, we were all starting kickboxing, and everybody, me, Wallace, Lewis, and many others, went to the local boxing gyms. And I didn't have any money. I paid for my lessons in the boxing gym by being the guy that put up the ring and took it down before and after the fights on Friday night at the local hotel. And I got a small fee for coming in and being a sparring partner to Sean O'Grady. He was world champion. And he weighed 30 pounds less than me. That's the punch. Those are the punches I remember the most.
Oh man, I bet. Good times. You got any situations in which you had a moment of clarity with the different types of martial artists on the planet?
You know, the first time I worked out with Chuck Norris, he came to Oklahoma City, and you know, we later became very good friends. But I was teaching in a place called Haggerty's Martial Arts. Anyway, and I bring Chuck in on Saturday morning, and there's several rooms there, and we went in the back room. And Chuck wasn't nearly as big a name at that time, and we worked out for 4 hours. And the first time I held a focus pad in my hand, he kicked it, and everybody came running because it sounded like a gunshot. Of course, I thought it tore my shoulder out of socket. He kicked it so hard, and I realized that I didn't know what hard was when he did that. And we trained for 4 hours, and that's Chuck's normal workouts, about 4 hours. At the end of 4 hours, to your point, Chuck, we laid down back on the mat, head to head, grabbed hands, and did leg raises. 90 degrees, 6 inches, 90 degrees, 6 inches, 90 degrees, 6 inches. We already worked out for 4 hours. I did 80, and I gave out. That was all I could. I thought I was in pretty good shape. Plus, I'm 10 years younger than him. Chuck did 200 after I quit.
Oh my God.
So, that was kind of an aha moment. There's a new level competitor. There's a person.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and that's one thing that when I look at because I look at the industry as a whole, and any martial art on the planet, anybody that's training, like everybody's familiar with this brand of Century Martial Arts, you know, this company that represents the industry, that's supported and been involved for so many years. And when you started growing the brand and Century started reaching, you know, nationwide first, were there some transitions in the business that really made you kind of sit back and be like, man, this is kind of becoming a big deal? You know, like, were there some moments where you were kind of shocked or surprised at, like, man, we're busy, I have to hire somebody, you know? Were there some moments where it kind of surprised you ever?
Kind of, but we made a lot of our own moments. We went to Black Belt magazine and advertised full page ads in color. No one had ever done that, and I had to beg. I had to beg for two reasons. One was I didn't have any money, and so I had to get Black Belt magazine to do it on credit, and that was the hardest part. And it was that. Then we produced ads. Eventually, Mr. Norris came and participated with us for about 20 years, and he's I mean, unofficially still around with us. We changed the world a little at a time there. Mail order ads, you actually clip the coupon out of the magazine, go buy a money order, send it to us, tell us your size, measure, etc. And I would figure out that there's about 8 steps there where anybody could stop the process of ordering a uniform from us. And we were selling what then was considered fancy uniforms. It's 70s, they had bell-bottom pants, go figure. So we shortcutted that by accepting credit cards. No one in this industry had ever done that. Believe it or not, there was a world before credit cards. We shortcutted it even more by purchasing an 800 number from the phone company. No one had done that before. You could actually call, and we said for rush orders, call 1-800. Well, any order's a rush order. And then you could call 1-800 and give us a credit card. It was great. Business boomed. We needed to differentiate ourselves. We decided to do it by having superior service. That was one thing. We could work harder and just give people good service. The second thing was quality, guaranteed quality. You know, it's only fair to the customer to give them their money's worth and more.
Yeah.
And we've always strived to give a fair price. Business on those 3 tenets. But we always loved martial arts. And I don't know how many people are in this building today, 250 or so, maybe 300. Uh, I don't know how many black belts there are, but there's certainly 100 martial artists, and there's lots of black belts, and every one of them has an opportunity to contribute to what we're doing, both in their service and their work and in their ideas. But for me, if someone said I could have a business where I made a reasonable living, surrounded myself with all these people that love the same things I do, I spend the day around the sport I've loved my whole life, you know, you don't have to pay me. I do it for free.
Yeah. And you hear a lot of successful people talk about, find what you love and you'll never work another day in your life. And I think that sometimes people take that the wrong way. We're like, because what you do, there's hard work involved with what you do. You guys are always innovating. You're pushing the industry. And, there's work that comes with the passion, but I guess it's a labor of love versus, a labor of requirement where I just, I have to go to this job, a lack of motivation. Could you equivalate the work in the business to the work in a martial arts class to where because you love it so much, you work so hard? Do you feel like that's similar with your business?
Yes.
Yeah, and it definitely shows because, you guys have done so much, over the years. Who do you feel like inspired you, or what was inspiring you in the early days of the innovation back whenever it was mail order to credit cards, the phone numbers? During that stage, was there anything that was inspiring the business acumen that you can correlate to?
I was hungry. Okay. In the early days, I taught martial arts in the evening. I worked in bars at night. I did Century in the afternoon and early evening and in the mornings. I needed to quit 2 of those 3 jobs. Okay. I didn't mind teaching martial arts, but after a few years in bars, you really kind of want to get a day job. So hunger was a motivation, being the hope of success.
Yeah.
I don't want to say his name too often, but Chuck Norris is the most motivating person you're ever going to meet. And I'm black belt number 326. That's doesn't sound high on the list, but we're in the 5,000s now in his organization. Most of the people that have lower numbers than me are dead. So I've known him a long time, and he's been a great influence on my life.
That's something that I feel that you and just the company at hand has always done is tried to innovate and model excellence. Because whenever you guys started doing the super shows, I was young in the martial arts. I was a teenager running a little martial arts school. I didn't know anything. And as I started to grow my school and it turned into multiple schools, the super show was such a unique experience for me because I had never, ever been in a room with that many talented martial artists and talented business people. Like, it was just such a unique paradigm that everybody came together for. And then now, so many years later, I still love the Super Show because I don't feel like there's any other events like it because of just who it brings together and the energy that comes with it. It's just a very unique experience that I feel like other people have kind of tried to do something similar or duplicate, but from my personal experience, I really feel like there's a unique martial artist piece to it that still exists, that always attracts me every year. And when you look at what has happened with the Super Show, do you feel like that's a reflection of innovation or your training or just a need that you knew was going to happen in the industry? Where do you feel like that came from?
I think that martial arts is a closed fraternity, and there's an ethos between the athletes that is almost unique. It's crazy that they get together on Saturday and bang heads, and then go out and have a beer together on Saturday night and tell stories weekend after weekend. Um, and that's kind of indicative of the people they are. I see these kids in like the Paul Mitchell team and Paul Leifer's team and a bunch of groups like that, the Trickers, and they work on some trick for 6 months to do it in competition, and then turn around and show 5 other people how they did it, or 10, or a group of 100. Jackson Rudolph's a great example of that, as Mackenzie is, and all those kids, those young people. I felt like the martial arts had some great success stories. There's people on one end of the spectrum who've been teaching their garage for 20 years and just can't seem to get out of the garage, but they want to. Some people don't want to, and that's fine too. Some people would really like to make a profession out of it, go out, change more lives. On the other end of the spectrum, there's people that have 10 schools, 10 successful schools with 100 or 200 students in each one of them, and some even bigger. The guy that has 10 schools and the martial artist that is in their garage are willing to exchange ideas. There's some better business practices that can help this guy and in the garage, and this other person also has best business practices to learn. By providing a forum for this exchange of ideas at the Super Show, I think we've given back somewhat to our industry. I think, and we have learned as much as anybody. Nobody knew. It's the old saying: you don't know what you don't know. Well, there was a lot to learn out there.
I mean, I know that it definitely has impacted me, and I think there's a lot of people that have some fun stories that started from that situation and that event. So if you were going to look at the last 50 years of martial arts and training and business, if you were going to take it down to a couple principles that you would pass on to your kids, that, if you want to be successful, whether in the martial arts or outside of the martial arts, if you follow these principles, you will achieve the goal.
I wish I'd had all the questions before I started the interview. I would say you have one reputation, one to lose, one to keep. But once you've lost it, it's very hard to get it back. Be the right person, do the right thing all the time. If you do that, you can make mistakes in life. You can make mistakes in business. You can start over and over and over, but you got to do the right thing. That's number one. Number two, don't sublimate your goals. Set your goals and stick with them. Do you pivot every now and then? Yeah, every business has. That's okay, and it's okay to fail. Just keep starting. Don't pursue something you don't have a passion in. If you don't have a passion for it, you just have a job. If you have a passion, you've got a profession and hopefully a way to steer your life.
Well, that is some very insightful advice that I think a lot of people can appreciate, that can lead them down the right path, because sometimes the short-term gain is not worth the long-term loss of, like you said, your reputation or your word. Because integrity is just so important to the martial arts, but in business as well, and even just in individuals. I think that's a descriptor that of the people that I talked to before this interview, which I did my homework. Everybody kept talking about a couple keywords, and the first one was always humility. They were like, "Oh, Mr. Dillard, he's a very humble man that always, doesn't want to take credit for anything. He just wants to get better and learn from everyone." And then the other one was integrity, where you have always been known for being a man of your word, of doing what you said you would do, of helping when you can. And I feel like that really has definitely been established with the business, with the martial arts side and the Maya side. And I really do think that your imprint of leadership has definitely passed through your organization. I appreciate you taking time. I know you guys are working hard, because Century, you guys started making face masks and face shields on site to try to help during this crisis that we're kind of dealing with. So you guys are very community oriented. So I know you guys have been active with that. Is there anything you would like to finish with?
We're starting to make face shields for young students to wear while they're sparring. I want to see the schools open back up, and I want to see them do it right. We talked to some schools that are establishing some very good standards and practices. You know, they're setting all the kids down and washing their sparring gear. They're making a show of cleaning their mats between classes. They're, of course, they're social distancing, and some of them are Zoom meeting in a manner where the parents can wait in the parking lot and watch the class. You know, some stuff like that. I think these face shields are going to be a big hit for a while, but most importantly, they'll keep some kids safe. Yes, we shut down some production lines and made masks. I think we distributed 30,000 of them or so far. It made everybody here feel good. Believe me, this is April. We market to maybe 10,000 schools a month. I think 9,900 of them are closed right now. You can't give away a uniform. So we sold a few punching bags, but we'll survive this. It's a cliche to say, "Don't worry, the sun will come up tomorrow." Don't forget, when the sun comes up tomorrow, some people are going to be hungry. You know, I don't know what to tell those people. Yeah, we can all start over again. I hope nobody gives up. I think what we do as martial artists is important. I think teaching is an honorable profession. I know that we're changing lives. We teach a lot of young people. They need to fit in. They need a way to stand out. They need to be goal oriented. They need those belts or stripes, etc. No child sits on the bench in martial arts. Everyone participates. The proximity problems that are keeping some sports from reopening, we may very well be the only game in town for a while. It's time to put our best foot forward, have parents talking about the safety measures that we're using, while they're still talking about all the benefits that you and I and everybody else, I think, knows the martial arts provides. It's gonna be good when things get back to normal. We'll hold our breath till then, and I wish everybody success.
Absolutely. Yes, sir. Well, it has definitely been an honor. I really appreciate the insight. I hope you guys stay safe. Thank you for everything you're doing for the industry and for the local community. You guys are definitely a pillar and a leader in the martial arts industry. And just wanted to say thank you and appreciate the time today. And I hope you guys do well.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. Bye.